Hello, everyone. I want to welcome you to the Create Unicorns with NFTs, DeFi DAOs, and Metaverses um, room here at the Infiom ClubHouse session. My name is Mariana Danilovic. I'm the founder and managing director of Infiom. We created Infiom in 2019 to help Fortune 500 companies onboard into these newly developing spaces. And we get together here every week on Tuesdays at 10 a.m. and Wednesdays at 1:30 p.m. Today, we're going to be discussing how to create unicorns in the space, and we will be discussing a few of the different business models that have, that have developed over the last couple of years, especially with DeFi, NFTs, and Metaverse itself. Today, I'd like to talk a little bit about when to use an NFT and when to use a token in deciding how to. Let Frank introduce himself first, and then we'll launch into that discussion. Hi, Frank.
Hello, my name's Frank, and I'm Metaverse, crypto, NFT, DeFi. I love all of them, and I'm just building myself in this space with hopefully I can offer some of my own knowledge and provide something to the viewers.
Thanks, Frank, for joining us. Frank has been very active in the metaverse, and hopefully will be leading the charge on new business models there. So, as we look at this, the NFT space first, kind of today we're deciding whether to use NFTs or tokens or tokens. And so I was just talking to a group in Silicon Valley that are very, very experienced business builders on the venture side. And we're trying to figure out when should we actually introduce tokens into a venture and when should we introduce NFTs into the venture. And so both of these are digital assets, right? Tokens being the fungible, meaning that you can exchange one for one, or any of them are exchangeable for each other. They're almost like more like currency, but they're not actually currency. They're just currency for that particular economy. And NFTs are non fungible tokens. So you will get something that's distinct and cannot really be exchanged, in essence, one for one. So even if you're doing an NFT drop and you have 10,000 people minting these NFTs, the fundamentally each one would own an NFT that's different in value. And so the question is, when should you use NFTs to build a business? And when should you use tokens to build a business? So, Frank, you have any thoughts on that?
So, um, the way I see it is when using when it comes to using NFTs to build a business, I think that the NFT side of things um, is very good for people who are um, trying to kind of find a new way of uh, of using assets as a way to kind of maybe unlock something. Um, I think the NFT side of things is a little bit more. It's quite new. People are able to kind of uh, try new things with it. But when it comes to the with tokens, I think that you have to have more of a if you have a kind of an economy that you want to build within the system, then I think it's better that way.
Excellent. So we're gonna those are some good points. We're gonna revisit this, NFTs versus tokens or tokens. Jeanette, you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Jeanette DePatty. I'm a professional tech explainer, and I've been talking and writing about this space for about 7 years, and I'm very excited to be here. Thanks, Mariana.
Welcome. Thank you. Will, you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, everybody. My name is Will Burns. I am former vice chair for IEEE, Virtual World Standard Group, and I currently work for Superworld, and I helped write the modern definition of metaverse. Probably also the reason why Frankie drinks too.
You and Frank are kind of figuring out what to use in the metaverse once we have it fully built out. Okay, so today we're discussing our first topic just for all of you for the panel, and I think Frank made some really good points. When to use NFTs in building a business, and when to use tokens, and why. And this is a very can be a very long discussion. So just think of some of the reasons why you would use an NFT drop, and some of the reasons why you would actually use a token drop. I can start. So the way I look at it is that in building a community that is focused on some consumer experience, whether that's a club that is going to meet at certain physical places, or experience like a concert or screenings or events that are fun and enjoyable in groups, and you are providing that community specific assets, specific access. So it could be access to a certain musician or talent or influencer or events related to that, then an NFTs drop makes a lot of sense because it's great for building strong communities of this kind. The community actually supports the events and the experience and the membership of it, and it's a very good way of building long-lasting, valuable, engaged communities. Tokens are also used for that, except the tokens are a little bit more focused on where people actually have to contribute some form of work. It could be work on the network, work on creating content. Um, those kinds of contributions that need to be rewarded almost like a payment system. And once you create your own economy with the payment system, members of that economy have a vested interest to grow the economy. So those are the kind of ways I think about it. How do you guys think about
Well, I was thinking about it a lot the same way that I would do a token drop if I needed my participants to do things that are specified in the DAO. So if they need to have voting power, or if they need to do certain activities and work, then I feel like a token is more efficient for that. Whereas if it's really just somebody who may be very emotionally involved in the community, but maybe not doing a lot of work product, like they're just enjoying things or sharing things, the NFT works great for that. And you can create rewards for the NFT based on things like sharing in the Discord or bringing your friends in. And usually that's more of a make sure you get whitelisted, make sure you get first for the NFT drop kind of reward. But that's what I've seen.
Hey, Kwame, you have a question related to this or comment?
I may. Thanks for letting me speak. Yeah, I'm just checking. I had a question. So I'm actually in Unreal Engine courses, um, doing that. I've been focused on um, that in particular after changing up what I was actually my focus on was since um, my Shopify store for my clothing brand. But I paused that once NFT took off because I have the vision of, creating an NFT clothing along with my clothing line. So vice versa, you buy the NFT, you get a shirt, or you get or you make these clothing to go along to people's avatars once they're in the metaverse. Now, I see Adidas working on something similar to that. That's where I got the idea as far as like sneakers are concerned. And I know other people and maybe other like clothing brands and like Michael Kors. I'm hearing they were working on something as well. Does anyone have as far as my question, does anyone have any, um, I guess, pointers on should, as far as like creating something along those lines, would it be best to use one of the um, new programs that's actually surfaced online, on Solana, or should I keep diving into Unreal Engine and do it that way? Um, it's a wide range question. I'm sorry if I'm a little confusing, but yeah, that's basically where my head is, and I'm kind of in an impasse, as you could say.
Will you have any suggestions for fashion brands on Superworld?
I mean, now Super World specifically, I mean, in the bigger picture, you choose the avenue that was going to suit you best, you know? As far as tokens versus NFTs, I've always looked at it as, you know, what you were saying, Mariana, where the token is a engine by which to incentivize behaviors or reward behaviors within an ecosystem that you're creating a community. And the NFTs are the items that they can, you know, purchase or collect, you know, without necessarily being the incentivizing factor. So I think that's good for one, is it's good for the economy system, and the other is for the goods system, if that makes any sense. So if you're looking for like fashion, it would probably be better to incentivize that as NFT, as purchasable goods or limited edition goods if they're collectibles, or if you have maybe Solana, you can do, you know, the non-limited edition stuff, I believe, and, you know, have that out in that transaction. I think it really depends on what angle you want to look at and how you want to build your own community around that brand. Will determine how you use these different abilities to achieve those, you know, end goals.
Yeah, those are all great points. Digital um, LAX is Digita LAX is the name of the Discord community that is focused on fashion brands, kind of bridging into NFTs, and they've done bunch of. They are doing a drop like every other day, it seems, or have some announcement every other day, and they're basically in the business of trying to figure out how to help fashion brands, get into the NFTs and kind of DeFi and metaverse space. I can send you an invite if you back channel me your email to their community, and you can see all of their announcements and some ways that they are treating, ways that fashion brands could interact with the space. I think what Adidas did was a really great example, and it was really interesting for someone like yourself, running a fashion brand, which is, here you are, you're struggling to get the next season out, right? And that takes a lot of work and it's very labor intensive. And then you put it out in the market and you hope for the best, that the consumers will find it appealing and it would sell out and all that kind of stuff. Buyers would get it for stores, et cetera, et cetera. But these, Adidas dropped that NFT drop and sold it in like a quick sale to 30,000 people, and there was a promise that they would get an Adidas tracksuit attached to it and at some later date. So it almost changes the way that you think about fashion business with NFTs, in terms of the timeline to produce your product, distribute it, and hopefully sell it out, if that makes any sense.
That was perfect.
We can hear you.
I, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's a little bit about, are you going to build your own space in the metaverse, or are you going to take your fashion into an existing space in the metaverse? I think that's really what the real engine question is about. And I think that's a question of, if you build it, will they come? Do you want to go where people are already, or do you want to, um, try and build your own? And there's pros and cons to each, but building your own metaverse is an awful lot of work. And so you maybe don't necessarily need to build the mall to sell your designs. Maybe you just need to use part of the mall to sell your designs, and that's kind of the decision I think you need to make.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. Um, is the thing about the metaverse itself is it's a bunch of
So,
destinations.
Will, you have to
So
speak up too. For some reason, we're
okay,
having a
okay.
audio.
The thing about the metaverse is it's a bunch of destinations. So effectively, you're not really deciding if you're going to be in the metaverse, but how. And if you want to do it on your own, you have your own challenges to get around that. You have to figure out how you're bringing people to your space within the overall ecosystem, what makes you special. That's a lot of work, or you can just find other spaces that exist and work within those constraints and reach the audiences that you want to reach in the context that you want to reach them. If it were me, I would say, don't try to build your own space. Try to build your space within an existing platform and go from there because the tools are already there. So why reinvent the
I agree with you, Will. I mean, I've been there, all the way through the super world build out, and it takes really a lot of time and a lot of people to build metaverses. It's not like an easy sort of transition. I would say doing an NFTs drop is easier than issuing, creating a tokenized economy in most cases, but building a metaverse is much harder than all of the above. That's my take on it. So use the platforms that have already been built and create your, let's say, fashion show in super world, or you can do a fashion show in New York, but it can also be in super world in Paris and LA and all the other areas around the world where you maybe as a new brand may not be able to exhibit, etc. So there are lots of things that one can do in metaverse using existing platforms that would benefit a clothing brand.
and
Joe, you want to introduce you?
Yes, hi. I'm Joe Acosta, and I've been following the space for quite some time. It's very interesting. I remember when the term tokenization and tokens didn't really get any traction until it was rebranded and the whole term NFTs, came out. And it was just quite interesting that tokenization and NFTs are pretty much the same thing, and of course if someone disagrees, I'd love to hear, your feedback. But it's very important to understand that, this is a community, and I myself find myself getting kind of frustrated because there is no possible way that anyone can learn everything there is to know about the metaverse, the NFTs, because the space is just growing at super speed. And so, what I encourage everyone is look at your experience, your background, and see where your experiences, where your strong suits are, and see if there's any kind of overlap within any type of space that you're interested in. DeFi. I'm very interested in the DeFi, market, and see where your experiences overlap, and see what value you can bring to the marketplace. We cannot forget that at the end of the day, the community is really it will make or break a project. And so I I compare NFTs similar to like your paper coupons, and some of the companies that have large followings and customers, they already have almost like a first mover advantage. So the mass adoption is already here. So when like Adidas, for example, when they come out and they promote whatever product, um, they're adding value because they're adding value, but the community makes up the value. So that's one of the things that makes a project very, very successful is the amount of members in the community. And then of course they do so by adding value by offering um, the currency or the underlying asset, the coupon, if you will, the digital coupon, if you will, non-fungible token, and so that just almost like seals the deal, you know. And I don't. I don't try and get lost in the whole, space because at the end of the day, it's all a play on, you know, capturing or moving, value from one person to the other. So it's all an end goal. It's all, for how much Bitcoin can we get from a person? How much Ethereum? Just like ICOs. ICOs, if you were to hold the underlying asset on each ICO, whether it's Ethereum or Bitcoin, you would have come out, much more ahead. So, it's all speculation. NFTs, you're basically, there's no value that's, yes, value and community is created, but at the end of the day, value is based on price appreciation, and price appreciation is based on someone buying it at a larger, a higher price than you. So sorry for rambling on, but I just kind of wanted to kind of give you an idea as to what's in my head, what I see in the space, and yeah, tokenization, real estate. They're tokenizing the real estate. It really didn't get very much traction. So then what they did was, they used, okay, let's do NFTs, and so a lot of folks are minting NFTs, either on the either blockchain, if you will, Salon in specific. But you know, the NFTs is backed by the community, and the fuel, if you will, is the underlying asset. Whether it's Solana, if you build on the Solana network, the Sol is used, as the fuel. And so I'm glad that the Ethereum is getting a run for their money, because it was just amazing on some of the tokens that people were pushing out. You There was a point where you would purchase $500 of tokens, and you would pay like $200 in gas fees.
I think it's really important too, Joe. I agree with what you're saying, and I think it's really important to understand that NFTs did a tremendous job of making all of this notion of decentralization more concrete for users, right? The idea of buying cryptocurrency and staking and all of that for a lot of average users is just so esoteric and incomprehensible. But the minute you talk about an NFT and you say, well, you're buying this piece of art or you're buying the capability to do these things, I think it really made space for a lot larger group of consumers to imagine themselves participating in this economy. That's just my 2 cents.
Yeah, I agree. The collectible market, people that collected baseball cards, they were able to wrap their head around, you know, we got paper cards and we got digital cards. So I think, that's correct, that, it was able to reach a different demographic. And I think that, you know, NFTs are going to help, because at the end of the day, like you said, um, it's a community that has within its community the currency, or whatever currency or NFTs, and that's basically acts as a almost like a kicker or a bonus to be within the community, because you purchase something, and it gain, and it gets value. So it's all, I guess it's all diversification, from traditional, assets. And as you know, that parking money in the stock market, and earning out a measly 12% per year on average. I mean, it takes a long time to really, gain any traction, and make, really create wealth. Whereas there's, folks on the internet purchasing NFTs, and they're doubling, tripling, or 10xing their money. Now it's a little bit harder depending on where you're at. But I remember in the space where you'd throw $100, and the next morning you'd have thousand, two, $3,000. I mean, it was just crazy. Of course, the market cap was about 200 million back then. I think we're sitting at under 3 trillion, if I'm not correct, based on last time I checked. But yeah, so the space is definitely moving, and that's one of the reasons I jumped on here to kind of get an idea as to what, you know, how you want one, the difference between the two, and how are you able to compartmentalize, the whole notion of the NFTs, and then you have then on top of that, since once you start getting an idea and and a concept of what an NFT is, then you throw the metaverse on top of that. It's kind of really, frustrating and confusing.
I'm
But
glad.
I think the metaverse is here to, I think, following Facebook and most Mana and a couple of the other early adopters that had already have a working concept, and seeing what they do, and then carving out a small little niche within your industry and within your experience, and seeing what type of value you can bring to the space.
Absolutely. I mean, at the end of the day, I know me and Frankie have talked about this at length, god awful amount of length, but the way I look at it is always the same, that the metaverse is just the ecosystem by which all the virtual worlds and supporting technologies coexist and create a spatial computing system, right? So when we look at it that way, we say that NFTs and cryptocurrencies and all that are there's technologies within the greater ecosystem. Now, they do play a major part, and I'm sure other things will come down the line that'll play a part. Virtual worlds are destinations. We find places and the communities that we want to be a part of in the whole, and we just jive with our own tribe. We find out what works for us, and we play within those rules, just like we do in real life. You go to what country you want to be in and what laws and regulations you want to work in, what kind of community you want to be in. We find our own tribes all the way around. So as far as NFTs and this goes, I don't think there's any silver bullet. Not even the company I work at is silver bullet. I say we offer as much as we can, and we're
Sure.
open to that. But am
I
I kind of like a shill for the company? No. Like Frankie knows for a fact, I avoid that like the plague, because I say you do whatever is going to work for you, and if it happens to be us, great. If not, then great. Like find the thing that's going to work for you.
I believe that the whole cryptocurrency, the whole NFTs space, digital currencies, how one can learn and how to interact, from blockchain using MetaMask and transferring, you know, um, fiat into different types of digital currencies of your choice. I believe that is preparing us for the metaverse, because the metaverse, it can unlock and open, another economy,
Absolutely.
almost as real as the physical economy. Because right now,
Even real.
we're
There's no reason why
we're
you couldn't
within.
go to digital stuff and get
Exact.
real stuff out of it too. So it's
Yeah,
like
I
I look at
I
all
I
that and
think
I
it's
say it's the currency of the metaverse is what it is. What
exactly.
about
I'm I'm thinking it's preparing us to able to transact efficiently within different blockchains, because once we get into the metaverse, you can actually, I believe that, it's there's no ceiling. We're limited due to our physicality, like where we live. We may live in a small town. There's not a lot of opportunity, but if you're able to create an identity, and there's a whole marketplace and economy within, the metaverse, I believe that, your avatar can make more money in the metaverse than you do in the physical, universe, and then your universe can basically bring that value from the metaverse into fiat. And so I really think that's kind of where we're headed, you know
oh, absolutely.
only because it just makes sense.
Well,
It
you're in
just
that
makes
room
sense. It's
where
just
like you're in that realm
evolution.
where it doesn't matter anymore where your physical locality is, as long as you can exist in the metaverse. So at some, with your identity or whatever, you can find a niche, you can find your calling, you can find your content creation, you can find that community. And it doesn't matter where you are in the real world. We're just kind of erasing the boundaries of the real world and saying now it's irrelevant where you are in the physical world. You are now
Hmm.
global immediately. You have access to a global market, a global audience, a global everything. And here's a currency that will transcend that with you. And even then, it'll probably evolve into that like omni transcoder currency where it doesn't matter what crypto you have, it'll just translate it for you on the fly for every purchase, point of sale. So it's going to be
Mhm.
invisible more and more to the point where it's just a convenience all the time. You don't have to worry about what wallet you got or what currency you're into. It's going to look at it and say, okay, this vendor here wants XY currency, you don't have it, but you have this one, so we'll just do the transaction on the fly for you, and there you go. You always have what you need. So you're right. We're going to get to that point where it's going to be, it doesn't matter. It's irrelevant where you are in the real world. You are now part of the global collective. And if you can play in that sandbox of the global collective, you always have something. It doesn't matter what it is you think you have or don't have. You always have an angle, something that you know, something that you're good at, something that you want to learn and aspire to. All of that is relevant in this huge ecosystem. And you can find your niche and you can make a living perfectly good or better by doing that on a global.
I'm
Yeah.
really,
Okay.
I'm really someone who believes that NFTs brings a kind of a kind of a lower hanging fruit when it comes to building a community. So when an NFT can be a very creative way to build a community from scratch in an area that you're really focused on, maybe making a change in that area or so. And once that community is built on, however the creative way you decide to implement the NFT strategy, whether it's through artwork or whether the artwork's going to be a key to a specific area in the metaverse, or whether you're going to open up a specific capability. I think building it up in at the beginning, um, then after you've built that community, introducing that community to DeFi aspects, such as being able to then get involved in token drops and things like that, and then being able to stake and learn about staking. I think it's just a very good way of starting off to build that economy, build that fan base, that marketing, and then incorporating DeFi's and DAOs also together with that. So I think NFT just gives it's a really good way to get into that whole world of raising funds, raising capital for projects as well.
Hey, Jim, I've been trying to invite you to the stage. Welcome. You want to just give a quick intro of your project?
Oh, yes. Thank you.
I can't hear you, Jim.
Oh, you can't hear? Can you hear now? Um, can you hear now?
Nope.
He's
Oh,
far away. I think
shoot.
he's talking up on
Hold
the
on.
couch. But he's back.
Sorry. Shoot.
We hear you now, Jim. Oh,
You
well,
lost it. Come
while
back.
we're waiting for him to come back,
Welcome
Will,
back.
I wanted to circle back to something that you said, which was that there is no silver bullet. I mean, I think you really have to figure out what your audience is going to be jazzed by. I mean, some people are going to be totally stoked about getting into staking and doing all of that, and some people just are not going to have any interest in that. And
Right.
I can think all the way back to the I can has cheeseburgers days, which is dating me considerably, I understand, but
Still
like
relevant to me.
the richness and imagination of that community and the language that they developed, and I really enjoyed being part of that community and ended up meeting a lot of those people in real life. And so I think it's just finding something that sparks your audience's imagination and gets them totally amped up.
Right. It's going to be whatever that form takes is going to even transcend what we think it will be today. There's plenty of folks out there that are thinking of permutations and approaches that we in this room couldn't even imagine 5 years ago, 2 years ago, 2 days ago. It's just constantly evolving. And so the trick here is there isn't a single platform in the metaverse that is a silver bullet for everything. The idea here is that there is no cure all. There's no I'm here and I'm everywhere. It's not even about trying to be everywhere in the metaverse. It's about trying to figure out where you want to be in the metaverse. What is going to suit your purposes best. What community is your jive. What's your jam, and what's the community you're building, what is their jam, like what's going to speak to everybody in the context that they want to be spoken to and connect with. And there's so many different ways to do it. that there is no one way. There's always the many ways, and I like the many ways version because it allows for diversity, it allows for that creativity to flourish, it allows for us to think of all that and do that stuff. So, anybody comes into, any space and starts, talking about like metaverses, I cringe. I know Frankie probably cringes. I don't think of metaverses. I think of virtual worlds and technologies that enable a greater spatial computing platform that we call the metaverse. It's a lot of moving parts. It's like, looking at a sports car and saying, I can understand the sports car for what it is as the whole. I understand all the moving parts within it. And those are the things that we're building now for all these platforms and technologies. And whether your Tesla car is part of the metaverse too, and it is, whether we realize it or not, it's scanning the streets, it's giving that data, collecting that street data in real time and allowing game engines, game companies to have real time ground data to recreate the earth or all this stuff is like things that are like laterals to it. AI and GPT-3 and MetaHuman and all these different technologies are part of it. They're pieces of the bigger puzzle. So what angle you want to look at is entirely up to you. It's up in the air and you can find your niche, whether it's virtual worlds or not. Just could be an engineer just revolutionizing, geometric waveguide for AR glasses like, you know, uh, Kura Technologies is sitting down now. She's sitting down and just doing that. That's her niche, and she's part of that metaverse too. She's enabling it, just like all these other technologies will come along and enable it and empower it. And we find what sector of this we want to be part of, and we find out what fits best for what we want to be doing. Some of us are highly technical. We could be doing networking and protocols, and you could be like Dr. Nevelstein doing IPM, IPM SME to do, interconnected virtual worlds without actually having to agree on a protocol. You can do all this stuff, and from the low level to the high level, it's up to you what you want to do, where you want to dip your toes in this. So NFTs are just part of the greater whole. Cryptocurrencies are the payment of the metaverse, and soon the world too. Eventually that'll, you know, turn into a universal currency that'll just translate and transcode as you need it. It's getting us ready for that level of thinking, that level of interconnectedness. And I think that's where we start seeing not just the technology side of things or, the, you know, trying to make money or something. We start thinking about the impact of human consciousness. That paradigm shift of how we treat each other and how we see each other and in relation to the rest of everyone else. That's also shifting quite as much too as we see we're going to make it together. We're going to have that that collaboration. We're going to have this whole human condition together. That is just as important. Maybe the holistic aspect or spiritual aspect, or what do you want to call it, the empathy aspect is just as important to this technology and this paradigm as the technology itself that enables.
Absolutely. Couldn't have said it better. It is kind of Infiom's, name is infinity and Om. We're all one to infinity. We believe as we build this better world, all of us here on this panel, I'm going to let you, Jim, talk about your great project, are trying to build that next generation world, which is a hybrid world in which, everyone can find the place that you're describing, Will, and participate in a productive way, so and enjoyable way at the same time. That's the cool part about it.
Don't get me wrong, even with my aspirations where I work, I will freely admit I'm a Mad Hatter. I'm a Cheshire Cat in the background because I propose things that were never done, that see things in a way that would break minds because I feel like breaking minds. I feel like doing, the impossible today, or at least attempting it. So we do stuff like VR and AR simultaneously and then merge the realities together. So you have VR people where your headset and stuff, and then people in real life can see you walking around as your avatar, and people in the VR side of things from their home can see you in a mirror world with your AR avatar and all that. I'm just merging realities because it's fun. But this is where it's all going. This is where things are coming to a head. We're seeing it. It's not just a binary aspect anymore. It's not an either or. It's not a this or that. It's a why not all together. aspect, and that's what's really mind blowing, even for me. And I've been in it for 3 decades, and I look at it and go, man, this is mind blowing to even think of the implications of like embodied AI or how NFTs and cryptocurrencies will be a future looking kind of system. And yes, it's wrecking the environment at the moment, but we're aware of that, and we're evolving to make it Ethereum 2 and all that, and proof of stake, and nothing's perfect out of the gate, and we do screw up. History shows that we screw these things up sometimes, and we course correct and get it back on track. The bigger picture is that it's all coming together in a way that is, quite frankly, just going to change the world. And I say that in a manner of like, in all of my years in this industry, I've sat across the table from so many Fortune 500s and startups and founders that sit there and say, I'm going to change the world. This thing is going to change the world. And I go, no, I don't think so. Right? This is the first time in my entire career where I've heard we're going to change the world with this. And I go, yes, I think you are, because I see you tangibly doing it. I see you tangibly changing your attitudes towards each other. You're being more open, welcoming, community minded, focused, global thinking. Yeah, absolutely. This is absolutely one of those things where we say it's literally going to change the world and how we see everything, how we interact with everything, how we interact with each other, how we see each other, how we treat each other, the whole 9 yards. It's going to be a sweeping change. And I hope it's a positive one. And I'm seeing a lot of positivity out of it. And I hope that continues to grow and, kind of push out all the crap and all the, the bad things, the bad faith actors and stuff. I want us to be empowered together, not just one person owning everything or one company, doing whatever wants to be all empowered by this, and then to use that new power, that newfound power of superpowers, to change each other, change ourselves, change the world for the better, the whole 9 yards. It's all right there. And as far as I go, with the company I work for, we just do it as examples. We just say, well, this is what we're doing with this. We're planting trees. We're uniting warring tribes in the Amazon. We're doing this. We're doing disaster relief. And it's not about us. We turn around and say, we're giving you examples of the things you could be doing with this stuff. We're trying to give you the tools to follow suit because we think you're more powerful than even us. And if we're capable of doing this stuff, what are you capable of at hundreds of thousands or millions of people using the same tools? What kind of change in this world can you bring if we can do this, right? That's the example. We try to lead by that example. And even without the company, without even that aspect of it, me, myself, just as a metaverse guy, unrelated to anything else, have had that same attitude. I look at everybody and go, what can you do to make the world a better place? What tools do you have? What kind of tools do we need? What would we need to make this a better world together? And if it's NFTs and crypto and, you know, JPEGs of cats, then great, let's do it. Let's lolcat this thing up, right? Because we're not all taking each other seriously either. We know when to be serious, we know when to be funny and frivolous, and we can mix the two and have fun. And that's the other part of it too, is that we're becoming more humanized. We're becoming more authentic with each other. We're not sitting around trying to put on a facade anymore. We're just chilling out, man. I sat in spaces with Cheech and Chong, just hanging out and talking, just being regular people. Like, oh, by the way, we're dropping some, NFT stuff and want to build a community together. And, hey, man, we're all in it together, right? And they're not even faking, they're just being them. And never in my life would I ever think as a kid listening to them on 8-track and album, and I'm dating myself now, I ever think those disembodied voices would ever be in the same room as me. That I'd ever have a chance to be like, yo, Tommy, what's up, man? It never occurred to me. And now we're in that phase where everybody is accessible if they want to be. Everybody can be down to earth. We can all just be real with each other and authentic. And that change is massive to this planet. Not just for us individually, but for even so-called celebrities. We're coming down off the pedestals. We're saying, hey, man, we're normal like you. And we've done extraordinary things, but we're no different. We're going to chill with you. We're going to be real with you. I have my problems. You got your problems. We had our stories. We've done this. Maybe Tommy was too high on stage one day to remember the dude who was talking to him. There's all kinds of funny stories, right? And now it sounds like we're all sitting around in a living room and just chatting with each other, just having a normal day with each other, but on a global basis. And that is amazing.
Yeah, and Jim, you want to talk a little bit about your project too, which is in that same realm, and quite interesting, just like Will is discussing, in terms of connecting people globally.
Well, thank you for inviting me up. Can you hear me now?
Nope, we can't hear you
Oh
very well.
shoot! Oh darn!
I'm so sorry. I don't know what's going on. Um, well, I do want to say that, having been in AR and VR, not as many years, well, but quite a few years, and sitting on the boards of director of a dome company that, was delivering amazing events in VR, globally. Um, by the time that, Super World came around, I thought to myself, we have a shot, but, it was pre-pandemic, and it was, to create this metaverse, and it was pre NFTs and pre DeFi. We did have tokenization already available to us, and of course we thought about it from day one. But I think it's all of these other tools, and of course AI. I'm with you on AI. AI is going to manage DAOs and all sorts of things, but it's all these tools being available to us as a humanity that allow us to not do so many menial tasks in our lives, but to think about what we want to build and be more creative, and have a way to kind of earn revenue and living through more of a creative expression that allows us to think about this new world we can build.
Maybe there's another aspect to that that I've noticed, and I'm actually intrigued by seeing both sides of this coin play out simultaneously. It's the company that comes in and says it's all about us, right? We are the center of it all. We are the thing to focus on. We, us, me, me. There's that egocentrism kicking in, right? And that's kind of a relic of the 20th century thinking. Then there's like these newer companies that are coming in saying it's not about us, it's about all of us. It's about all of you. Less about us and all about empowering you. And that's what I like to see, because that kind of thinking is the collaborative thinking. I can't really speak to anybody else about it, or on that, but I can speak from our point of view that we don't see competition. It's not that we're egocentric and saying we're better than everybody. No, we say we don't see competition because we see collaborators. We see interconnectivity here. We see everybody bringing something to the table. So we're not looking at it as a cutthroat industry. We're looking at it as how can we unbundle the sticks, so to speak, and break a stick each, and tag this.
It's not
So I
pie.
like,
It's
huh?
not pie. It's not pie. You can cut it up and you're still going to
Yes,
have just as much.
yes, right. And it's like we're all in it together, and I like that phrase, because we are. It's like we're all going to be making a piece of this, whether we like it or not. Whether we have a lot of egocentric companies out there going, "We're going to make the whole thing," and I go, "No, you're not. You don't want to make the whole thing anyway. It's a nightmare. It's a crazy space. Things in there that you can't even imagine are going to happen, and you can't handle it all, and nobody should. But together we can." And somebody asked me a while back, "Who's going to make the metaverse?" My answer was everybody. Who's going to pay for it? Everybody. That doesn't seem feasible, and yet here we are. It's exactly that way. It's a collaborative effort globally.
You know, because I mean, I have a big love for the whole music area of things, and what I see happening now is the shift in building communities has now moved to to the whole NFT realm as a way of building community and being able to build fan bases and offer them something unique and creative that they can own, that gives them access maybe to a space that they can actually consume the music, the artwork, or all of that. So I'm loving the fact that people are able to utilize their artwork to raise funds for something that they believe in, and also be able to um, sort out the royalty aspect of it, that it consistently pays those parties for the incentive of reselling the actual assets. And I just love that you're able to plug into certain things that you believe in, that you want to make better in the world, and use those digital assets to kind of bridge the gap between the real world and the digital world. That's why I mean I'm really really excited about how this can change the world of building building capital for projects. That's something that I'm really excited about.
Yeah, and if you think about some of these NFT drops that are happening on the Clubhouse. I learn so much from the Clubhouse every week. I want to say that there's so many really great thinkers in the Clubhouse, people with great experiences, cross-functional expertise that I don't have access to, even though I have access to so many people through the Infiom network. I always find more people that are valuable sources and resources of information, knowledge, and experience that can help new entrepreneurs and people in general building the space, as Will pointed out, kind of collaboratively, get to that next level with inspiring ideas, but also suggestions. And there are a lot of rooms that talk about NFTs drops and NFTs drops just for the sake of an NFTs drop without looking at this larger context of it, of building a business, creating an experience that's shared with other people that's valuable and a going concern versus sort of a one-off experience. I feel that will probably die down in the next 6 to 12 months, that those NFT drops will not be as successful as they were initially, as the market was trying to learn about the space. But things that are building utility, building value, building companies will sort of replace that. And I think that there would be a lot more ventures that would couple that opportunity of dropping an NFT collection to start, the work of the community, to then issuing tokens to create an economy that's a little bit more liquid than that. What do you guys think?
Am I still on mute? I'd like to add something.
We lost you a little bit, Joe.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I do think that typically it's going to help projects get off the ground and attract capital more easily. Um, I've come from a capital raising background since 2008, 2009. I was raising capital for
We're
oil
losing you again.
and
I'm not sure what's going on with your audio, but you sound like you're in the in the matrix as well.
okay. Well, I'll just let someone else speak since my connection is bad.
Your connection is great.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, Jim, we can hear you.
Sorry, so
Welcome.
sorry, so sorry for the technical difficulties. I tried a different device, but it's a fascinating conversation you're having. Thank you for inviting me up.
Yeah, so Jim has a great project. Want to tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah, and just briefly, it started out, pre-pandemic a few years ago as like a sort of a web VR interactive experience, more of a web project with, web VR and some AR aspects to it and location-based aspects. But during the pandemic, we started to build it out more as its own world and to integrate roles for users that technically make it more of a game. We have sort of a Unity wrapper that goes around it. But that's where the NFT side comes in, where we're looking to assign actual roles to people based on that. So it's not just rights like a smart contract, but it's like a role playing scenario. But I found a few of your comments there, especially I think I heard most from Will, but it's interesting to look at all of these different angles coming together, such as, on the one hand, a lot of people forget that, virtual worlds and spatial computing are tied together before they were tied to NFTs necessarily. So there is this really interesting sort of spatial world out there that hasn't been built yet, I think. And, all of these early projects you see, like, Sandbox has a proprietary map. All of these other metaverses have sort of a look and feel to them, whether it's lo-fi or whatever, that makes it accessible as an entry point. But there's lots of other ways to tie content together to you in a spatial sort of realm that is a different type of virtual experience. And so that's one point I was thinking of. But then secondly, on the democratization side, where there's like the hardcore, decentralized contingent that, wants everything to be run by a DAO, wants it to be completely decentralized. When you're thinking about storytelling projects, to me that becomes like a sort of like a chain letter or like a chain novel that we're each writing a chapter, and it's, that might be fun, but it's hard to have sort of a traditional, I don't want to say traditional, but like a narrative in that context in the way people might expect it, and have it be totally decentralized. So there's lots of different angles I could, pick up on from what you guys said, but those were two things I was thinking of that are starting points, I guess.
Yeah, I think what's great about your project is that you're more about storytelling in, through all these different mediums. And I feel that I've seen a lot of interesting entertainment projects, but not as many interactive storytelling projects. And I
Right.
feel that you guys have sort of a lead, in terms of developing.
Yeah, and that comes from a lot of testing, actually, even before, the NFT side was being built out. It comes from, testing where people's attention spans are in this virtual world and what type of level of interaction is meaningful to people. And I know I was in one of your rooms a few months ago and we were talking about the old, branching narratives and stuff like that. Choose your own adventure. Everyone's trying to recreate that 50 different ways for the last, 5 years. Bandersnatch, everything. That's fun, but it's like a novelty to that. So it's not really, the right level of interaction to have a permanent project in a virtual world environment. Bandersnatch worked because it was sort of a gimmick. It was like the end was it didn't matter what you chose, so the choosing was sort of just novelty. They do a lot with children's branching narratives on Netflix, but they haven't gotten it so that, there's all sorts of adult programming, or series that have those branches, because it's a little bit tedious after a while and it doesn't really work the way it's intended.
I
So,
oh Jim,
yeah,
I can't agree with you more. And we were just talking about this, I think yesterday on the Clubhouse, that there's interactivity and there's interactivity, right? And so the connection between here, I've created 20 choices for you and you pick, is one kind of interactivity. Let's let's get together, put up a tent and have a show, is a very different kind of interactivity. And I think we're
exactly.
headed to that second kind much more now.
And that's so much more what people are looking for or used to after,
Yep.
a long day of work or
Yep.
whatever. I want to be entertained ultimately, and maybe I want a little bit of, customization and interaction, but I don't want to be sitting there holding the remote and like powering. It's like the equivalent of like the Flintstones, like powering your own car. It's like it gets
Right.
to be tiring after a while if you do that all the
And
time when you just want to sit there,
yeah, and I think there's a big difference between give me some entertainment that I can feel is clever. That's one kind. And then there's give me a universe where I can feel clever. That's a very different emotion and experience.
And it's different from what people would expect. And I think to tie it back into virtual worlds, when, web VR and VR, came out with like 360 video and was huge 5 years ago. CNN, New York Times, everyone was like shooting everything in 360 video. It's like when you don't know where to look, it does become tedious after a while and it becomes distracting. And, we do some projects with, 180s, and we do some with, very, limited range of movements that are more interesting. And then why not combine it with 2D video that is not 360 after a while? If if that suits the purpose and gives you sort of, I mean, it works better that way than just being stuck in a 360. And you think about sort of like walking down the street. If I produced, like the equivalent of Disneyland or Disney World, I always use it, like Main Street. It's like it only works at Main Street and Disney World because you're sort of guided down and there's only like 4 or 5 options like of stores. You can't like walk upstairs to an apartment. There isn't one, So it works as like an experience when you're walking through as like a fake Main Street that feels real. But you can't do that in VR because every little hotspot that you put in is confusing to people. Am I meant to click on all of them? And am I meant to be surprised as if if I walk down the street, I might run into a high school friend who I haven't seen in 20 years, and that's cool. That can't happen in a web sort of virtual world 360 because it's planted there by the person who designed it and who came up with the storyline. So it becomes this sort of self-conscious clicking that we're doing that wasn't really addressed in that early iteration of interactive video and virtual worlds, and it was sort of rejected. So
Well, this is so much fun. I wish we can go on for another hour, which we've done only once. At the end of the year, our closing salon at this time. But we usually stay within an hour so that if you want to listen to the replay, you can, turn it on and hear all the. Today, we had great thoughts for some of the market leaders in the metaverse space. And also, we discussed whether to do an NFTs drop and whether to do a token drop and why. Join us next week at our clubhouse on Tuesday at 10 a.m. or here back at 1:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And thank you, everyone, for sharing these great ideas. A lot of fun with the panel today. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.